So, Allan, after you correctly predicted that Donald Trump would become president, he sent you a tweet saying, gee, thanks, congrats. He's probably not so happy with you now.
I'm waiting for his letter, or at least his tweet. And Mr. Trump, I have to tell you, there is a chapter in my book, The Case for Impeachment, called The Way Out. Because you were so gracious to me, I've given you some friendly advice on how you can avoid impeachment. However, I don't think you've paid much attention to it yet.
Well, we won't go there just yet. You've predicted he will be impeached, and you've suggested now there really is a case for this with the firing of Comey. What's the basis for that?
Yeah, it's not just the firing of Comey, of course. It's the lies that were issued by the White House in support of the firing of Comey. It's the fact that the firing of Comey came right after the devastating testimony of Acting Attorney General Sally Yates that the National Security Advisor to Donald Trump was a danger to national security because he was compromised by the Russians. It came right after subpoenas were issued to Michael Flynn and his associates, and it came right after, apparently, Mr. Comey had thought this investigation was significant enough to ask for additional resources. And Donald Trump himself admitted that he was thinking about the Russia investigation when he fired Mr. Comey. That's at least borderline obstruction of justice. And add to that the fact that the White House pretty transparently conspired earlier with Representative Nunes to derail the House investigation into possible Russian collusion. Putting it all together, and you've got a probable cause case for obstruction of justice, and there's only one way of dealing with that constitutionally. The framers, as I point out in the case for impeachment, put impeachment into the Constitution as a legal, peaceful, and orderly means of saving our democracy from a rogue president.
So you say that there's a lot of issues here, a lot of possibilities for building a case. But just back to Comey, you're saying now that this is a worse case than Watergate, and reminding us that it wasn't actually the tapes in Watergate that led to Nixon stepping down, that it was the firing of the special investigator Archibald Cox.
That's right. It was the Saturday Night Massacre in October of 1973, the firing of Archibald Cox that, first of all, turned public opinion against Richard Nixon. For the first time, a plurality of Americans favored his impeachment. And secondly, it was the firing that triggered the impeachment investigation that ultimately in the House Judiciary Committee would lead to the voting of 3 articles of impeachment against Richard Nixon, with more than 1/3 of Republicans joining in voting for at least one of those articles. And then, of course, to avoid what would have been certain impeachment in the House, Nixon resigned.
But do you see that happening? Do you see Republicans are in control of the House? Do you see that happening, of them calling for the kind of investigation that could lead to impeachment?
Well, I would start by calling upon every Republican in the House to do what so many Republicans did during Watergate.
But do you see that happening?
Patriotism over party. Yes, here's why I see it happening. First of all, if the Democrats stand firm, it would only take some 24 Republicans to shift. That's just 10% of Republicans in the House. And a Lichtman rule of politics is that for office holders, their prime requirement is survival. And if they see Trump as a liability, at least 24 could turn against him.
You mentioned that one of the cases for possible impeachment is lying, remembering, I suppose, that Bill Clinton, that's what he was impeached for, was not his activities, but for lying about it.
He was impeached both for obstruction of justice and for lying under oath in a deposition that started in a deposition in a civil suit. And Trump faces lots of civil suits. He has a history of inveterate lying, and he could well be caught in the Clinton impeachment trap. In the case for impeachment, I lay out 8 possible grounds, and one of them is lying.
So there are calls right now for a special prosecutor instead of Donald Trump appointing a replacement for Comey. People are saying there should be a special prosecutor. What do you think of that?
I think that is most misguided. I think that's the best way to save Donald Trump for the following reasons. But that's what the
Democrats are asking for.
And the Democrats need to read my book and listen to this broadcast. They're off on the wrong track. Let me tell you. Number one, Trump appoints the special prosecutor. Number two, Trump can fire the special prosecutor, just as Richard Nixon fired Archibald Cox. Number three, special prosecutors take years to do their work. The special prosecutor in the Iran-Contra case took over 6 years to issue his final report. The constitutional remedy here is not a special prosecutor. It is an impeachment investigation in the House Judiciary Committee that should be fully staffed, like the Watergate Committee, which had 44 lawyers and some 100 staff members. It would be conducted by another branch of government. It would be entirely independent of Donald Trump, and it would have the clout to keep Donald Trump from obstructing it.
So I'm going to ask you for another prediction. If he actually is impeached, which would obviously be a long process if ever it began, wouldn't Mike Pence become president? Are you predicting that?
Mike Pence would become president, and I am predicting that with one caveat. You know, the media has given Mike Pence a huge pass. You know, he lied about General Flynn. He lied about the reasons why Mr. Comey was fired.
Well, he says he was misled about Flynn.
I'm about to get to that. And the media says he was misled. We don't know that he was misled. That's a supposition on the part of the media. In fact, maybe he was part of this whole operation right from the start, and maybe he's in it as deeply as Donald Trump. We do not know, and an impeachment investigation needs to look at Mr. Pence as well. A vice president is no less subject constitutionally to impeachment than a president.
Well, these are some big predictions. People are talking a lot more about it. We'll see whether the Republicans are listening to you. Thanks so much, Professor Lichtman.
Thank you.